This happened just a week ago. I was driving my daughter out for a spin. At first, we were cruising along fine on the mountain roads. We even stopped at a rest area to eat since I thought it'd be fun to prank my daughter a bit by taking an untraveled fork in the road against her protests. Despite her objections, I found it amusing and kept going until suddenly the engine died. Deep in the mountains with no cell signal, my daughter and I, both vehicle illiterate, were at a total loss. Walking back to the rest area we'd eaten at seemed impossible, knows how many hours that would take. With no choice, we decided to spend the night in the car and seek help at the rest stop the next morning. Since it was cold outside, we stayed put in the car. Before we knew it, the sun had set, and the nighttime mountains were utterly silent, without even the rustle of wind through the trees. After some time, my daughter dozed off in the passenger seat. Well, might as well try to sleep too, I thought. But just as I was about to close my eyes, I seemed to hear some kind of sound. Even recalling it now sends chills down my spine. Had no idea if it was made by a person or an object. I figured I must have misheard until the noise started slowly approaching us. A bad feeling overcame me, and I instantly snapped awake, eyes wide toward the window. That's when I saw it in the darkness. Some smooth, white, writhing form slithering toward the car. Its shape reminded me of the aliens like Jamila from the Ultraman series. A headless, one-legged figure. If I had to describe it, imagine something shuddering across the ground on one leg, flailing its arms wildly, creepily advancing on the car while making those eerie noises. The scene was utterly terrifying. I almost couldn't stop myself from screaming. But with my daughter right there, I couldn't cry out or flee. Though the creature approached the car, it seemed to just pass by the front, constantly making those unsettling sounds as it went. The noises gradually faded as it went on its way. Guess the monster left, I thought, turning to check on my daughter only to see the thing had suddenly appeared right outside her window. That's when I noticed it had a face on its chest, now fixed on my daughter with an indescribably horrifying grin. In that instant, the father in me raged, shouting at the creature, "What the hell are you looking at? You son of a bitch!" But it just vanished, and my daughter also suddenly woke with a start, probably from my yelling. I was petrified, but my gut told me we were in grave danger and needed to flee immediately. So I tried the dead engine again, and miraculously, it started right up. I quickly threw it in reverse and floored it, while my daughter kept murmuring deliriously. Pushing the pedal through the floor, I finally saw some distant lights and started to relax a bit. But that's when I noticed at some point, my daughter's murmurs had morphed into that same eerie voice as the creature, and her face had become utterly grotesque. On instinct, I realized I couldn't just go straight home. So I drove directly for the temple I'd seen earlier. Seeing a small hut with its lights on near the temple, I brought my daughter and desperately started knocking. After a while, what looked like the head monk emerged. One look at my daughter, and he asked what was wrong. I hurriedly recounted entering the mountains. Then the creature encounter. Listening with a grave expression, the monk then explained. It seemed my daughter had been possessed by an entity called the Mountain Sword. If she remained this way past 49 days, the possession would become permanent for the rest of her life. To prevent that, the monk said he hoped I would leave my daughter at the temple for now while he and the others tried rituals to expel the creature. Left with no choice, I had to agree. Before leaving the temple, I called my wife to her on the situation. Understandably distraught, she said she wanted to come see our daughter, but the monk warned that the Mountain Sword was a spirit known to possess women. If my wife came face to face with our daughter now, she too could become possessed. So under no circumstances could my wife meet our daughter until she was normal again. After leaving my daughter with the monk, I returned home. Every day after that, I visited to check on her progress. Though her face remained grotesquely contorted each time, I felt she was slowly improving. Then finally, one morning, the monk called to say your daughter seems to have fully returned to normal, overjoyed at the news. My wife and I immediately rushed over to the temple to bring her home. At the temple entrance, the monk, a few others, and our daughter with a perfectly serene expression awaited us. The moment she saw us, our daughter excitedly leapt into our arms, crying in relief. Seeing her completely normal again, I profusely thanked the monk and the others before we left for home. That evening, we prepared a feast to celebrate her recovery, and I even allowed myself some alcohol rarity. At the dinner table, I realized that had I not recklessly driven up that mountain road just to prank my daughter, none of this would have happened to her. I continuously apologized, but couldn't shake this nagging, strange feeling. Perhaps it was just the alcohol, but why did my wife and daughter's expressions seem so off? Something felt amiss, but I couldn't put my finger on it until I heard that hauntingly familiar voice. A voice I knew all too well.